My name is Amanda Brown, and I would like to present my Appreciative Inquiry project for Advanced Instructional Strategies class. Welcome to Back to School, Rethinking Student Orientation. 5 years ago, when we developed the middle school at Lincoln School, we started with student orientation. The very first year, we had sixth grade orientation. The sixth graders moved through workshops where they got to learn more about being a middle schooler, what were some of the expectations in middle school. They got to do team building activities with their advisory groups, and they also got to meet all of their teachers and meet new students who entered the middle school as sixth graders. Then we expanded the student orientation to include not just sixth grade students, but also seventh and eighth grade students. Again, 7th and 8th grade students were able to go through expectations of what it means to be a middle school student, to do some team building and game activities, and to get them on campus and playing and getting them together and starting off the school year on the right foot. This student orientation started on the very first day of school before classes even started. The dream part of rethinking student orientation is to actually create two types of student orientation. One that would be called back to school, and then the other one that would be our normal student orientation. So for back to school orientation, this would happen before school started. They would be on half days in the morning. Each generation would come to school in the morning, half day, and go through different activities to help better prepare them for the first day of school. So sixth grade would come one day, seventh grade another day, and eighth grade the third day. Some of the activities that I have ideated for back to school would be to pick up their iPads from being updated over the summer, purchase class materials. We would set up a bookstore where they could purchase any of the materials that are on the middle school materials list for students, so they would get everything they needed right then and there. They would also be able to walk through their schedule. This would be a great time for sixth graders who are unfamiliar with the rotating block schedule we use and going to different classes and different teachers throughout the day to help them understand where classes and teachers are located throughout their schedule. We could make it almost a scavenger hunt for sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth graders to move throughout the campus on their own through their schedule, and then they could come together and help each other say, oh my gosh, where's the arts building? Where's PE? Did you go to science? And it would help them know their schedule better before the first day of school. They would also be able to pick up uniforms. Middle schoolers grow so much over the summer, and a lot of them will need new uniforms. So this would be a great time to purchase new uniforms, pick them up so that they're prepared. Parents can also stop by and stay a little bit to talk about transportation, update cafeteria accounts, and anything else that needs to be taken care of on campus before school starts. So that's the back to school orientation. Very nuts and bolts, things that would help students prepare and parents prepare and teachers get to know their students even before school starts. Student orientation would be very similar to what we have been doing the past 5 years. Even when we were virtual, we still had student orientation days. Instead of having multiple days of student orientation, I would suggest that we have a first day of school orientation. Every first day of school, we have a welcome assembly, welcoming all the students to the middle school and to the school year. That assembly would still happen as the first thing, as a whole middle school together with the principal, dean of students, the middle school leadership team, all leading that assembly. Then, students would break into their advisory groups and with their advisors go through 3 different workshops in the morning. The first workshop would be for MYP Services Action. This would be a good time for sixth graders to learn what services action is, and then seventh and eighth graders to either reflect on their projects from last year or to think about what project they want to work on for this school year. Another workshop would be middle school expectations. This is where the leadership team and the dean of students would go over protocols and expectations, behaviors in different areas in the school. The third workshop would be how to be successful in 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, depending on the generation. This would work with technology, learning about Microsoft Teams, ManageBack, and all the other technical apps that we use at Lincoln School in the middle school. We would also talk about approaches to learning skills, or ATL skills as the MYP calls them, to help them know what skills they will be developing or continuing to develop during this school year. For example, we could talk about ways to help students organize, either through notebooks or online folders. We could also talk about time management, to-do lists, agendas. We could even do goal setting during that time with students. But that would be how to be successful. The students would rotate through workshops in their advisory groups. It is really important for students to start bonding with their advisory groups because they will be with each other all year long. And it's also a great time for advisory teachers to get to know their advisees. This is also a good time to really start to make the bonding, building those relationships happen, playing games and things like that in the workshops. In the afternoon, after lunch, there would be team building activities as a generation. So 6th grade would have a designated area on campus to do team building activities. So would 7th grade and so would 8th grade. These team building activities could be anything from team building activities of trust and vulnerability to actual competition games like you would have on a field day, and we could split the students into their houses or even by advisories. So this student orientation would look very similar to the student orientation that we have now. The most enjoyable part of this rethinking of student orientation would be helping students get ready for the first day of school before the first day of school. We want to make sure when the first day of school comes along that students are ready, excited, really, really wanting to be at school with their friends and having an enjoyable time, even before the academics and classes start. This would also help guide each generation through important information about the middle school before starting classes. A lot of times we have a lot of information to give students at the beginning of the school year, but classes start, lessons begin, and academics, tests, quizzes, homework starts right away. And so some of the expectations and important information can get lost at the beginning of the school year. This would also be a fantastic time for team building activities to bring students together, build those relationships between students and teachers, and to really have fun because Lincoln Middle School rocks. Some of the most challenging parts of this rethinking student orientation would be that student schedules would have to be ready earlier in the summer. A lot of times schedules are changed up until the first day of school and even after the first day of school. So we would have to make sure that student schedules were finalized to a point before the first day of school, so that the back to school orientation day would be effective with students knowing where to go for classes and to work through their schedules. Student iPads would also have to be ready earlier in the summer. That's a very large task. At Lincoln School, we have close to 1,500 students, and each student has an iPad that is collected at the end of the school year, updated over the summer, and redistributed at the beginning of the school year. We would have to definitely work with our technology team to see how we could make sure that the student iPads were ready earlier in the summer. We would also have to work with other departments, not just technology, to set aside time for back-to-school days. For example, transportation, the cafeteria, and accounting would have to be available on those 3 days of back to school to make sure to work with parents and to have information and time for them to talk. Finally, one of the most challenging parts of our current student orientation and moving forward would be planning the workshop schedule for the 3 generations. We would have to make sure we had enough teachers to be in the workshops together with their students, their advisories, and to make sure we have enough teacher leaders to lead the workshops. Of course, the middle school admin team would be there leading the workshops, but it's also good to have some of the middle school teacher leaders in the workshops giving their advice to students and leading those workshops. So those would be the most challenging parts. Thank you so much for allowing me to present my Appreciative Inquiry project to you. I hope that in the 2022-2023 school year, we can make this a reality. Thank you.